Hi, and welcome to Season 6 of the 15-ish Minute Coffee Chat, a conversation providing tips for every entrepreneur and business owner.
Veterans and people with disabilities are often overlooked in a talent pool. Big mistake. Meet Mary Leone, co-founder of Diversity Outreach Partners, as she joins host Selena of Hauoli, Socially Inspired, and Anna of NomadAbout. We'll be talking about how small business owners and entrepreneurs can implement practices that build a diverse and inclusive business environment.
Yes.
How excited are you for this topic today? I am very excited.
I am also very excited. I mean, this has been a hot topic for the last few years, right?
Yeah.
And so it's going to be really awesome to have an expert on our show today that can really talk about the whole DEI conversation and that has been working within that environment for a really long time. So I'm excited to hear what she has to say and how small business owners can apply it, because I think that's something that's really difficult for us,
right?
You know?
Yes. And I think, one of the things when we were prepping for this episode was like, you don't have to be a big, huge company to implement DEI practices, and I love what it is just being more mindful as you just conduct your business on a daily basis, right? So
yeah, absolutely. In fact, that kind of leads us into our call to action question, which we want to know from everybody who's listening right now. Like, just pop in the comments. Do you, as a small business owner, do you have DEI language in your mission statement? Or do you consider it inclusive and equitable and diverse, your actual mission statement? So I'm just curious, like, is this something that small business owners are thinking about and trying to put into practice now, or is it something that we're, not confused about? I mean, I think we understand the concept behind it, but maybe like unsure of how it can be implemented when you're 1 to 3 employees as opposed to, a large corporation, right?
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. Again, this whole prepping has really made me more aware. And I think that's why we wanted to have this conversation today is we want you to be aware. And we brought on somebody that like knows what they're doing and knows how to like guide you to like getting the right information and how to do it. So I guess, Anna, what we should be doing here is let's bring in our, this is me doing that thing again, Anna, let's read Mary's bio,
Yes.
Go ahead,
let's introduce her. Oh, there we go. Okay. So Mary Leone is a talent acquisition leader with a passion for diversity recruiting. Her specialties are military and transition, military spouses, and people with disabilities, although she loves all types of diversity recruiting. You can find her volunteering with Vets to Industry as vice chair for Disability Indiana, or that's Disability IN. I'm not sure exactly what it is. We'll have to clarify with her. North Texas, or mentoring with those in transition. She lives outside Dallas, Texas with her husband, who is an Army veteran, and 3 teenage children. So without further ado, let's bring Mary on, don't you think?
Yes, let's do it. Yay!
Hello, Mary. So excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on and like sharing with Anna and I, like, I think a really important topic that most people have to take a minute, right? And realize this is something that they need to consider really looking at.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. So before we get started, Mary, I kind of flubbed up your bio a little bit. What is Diversity IN? Should I know that term?
Well, it's Disability in
North
Texas. So Disability in is a national organization, and then we have local affiliates around the country. I was part of the leadership team that created Disability in North Texas here in the Dallas area. And I'm still on the board as vice chair. So what we do is every quarter, it's usually about 5 times a year, we have a guest, a presenter, or best practice sharing. Sometimes in the old world, when we actually did things in real life, we actually did some tours as well. So it's a great organization, and they have local affiliates all over the country.
Okay. Okay. So now I know, and I will never make that mistake again, ever.
Right.
So tell me, before we get started, oh, wait, no, let's do our coffee cup selfie. And then I'll start asking questions, right? Because we need to do it for sure.
Yeah. Mary has a great cup, you guys, and she's showcasing her family because they are very important to her. But all right, guys, on 3, 1, 2, 3. All right.
Thank you.
Everybody. Yeah.
Yes,
okay, Anna. Let's ask this question. And Mary, I'm going to pull you into our this
our headliner shot.
Yeah, because we want everybody to know. We want them to hear what you are saying. So, Anna, without further ado, you got a question for her.
I do, actually. So, Mary, I just want, before we get started, like with our in-depth conversation, can you just tell us a little bit about your experience with DEI and why you're in this kind of like field and what it means to you, kind of like the bigger general picture? Because we've heard a lot about DEI. I would say it's been a hot topic for at least the last 3 years, like national news hot topic kind of thing. And so it's a big conversation and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Like it's not going to disappear. It's not going to go off the radar. Like this is hopefully changing things for the future for people. So anyway, can you just tell us a little bit more about your experience?
Sure. So I have been in recruiting for many, many years. I'm not going to tell you how many, but many, many. And I've done diversity recruiting for quite a few of them for large companies. And it actually just started as a definition for race and gender. And it has expanded, especially over the past, I would say 10 years. So my last big company that I worked for, I was in an HR compliance role. I then moved into talent acquisition. But as part of implementing some of the regulation changes for people who follow affirmative action plans, we actually had to do a lot of special things for people with disabilities and protected veterans. And we really didn't have a focused strategy, recruiting strategy on campus. So I went to our talent acquisition leader and I suggested this. And she said, you know, Mary, we just don't have the bandwidth, but if you want to volunteer, and I said, sign me up. So I did. And so I reached out to 120 different connections on our 25 target schools, put together a heat map of best practices, where should we go based on who was more open, the schools that were more open and really used to helping students with disabilities and student veterans. There are probably like 5 or 6 in both of the categories, much more advanced on the veteran side than on the disability side. And then we started implementing. And so that's really where my passion developed for student veterans as well as people with disabilities. And I continued to evolve, and I was tapped to be part of the leadership team with disability in North Texas. And I love that organization. We've really evolved. Unfortunately, the pandemic kind of stalled some of that growth. We want to do more with it, but we're waiting till we can get back into real life to do that. I also started volunteering about 18 months ago with a veterans organization that's national called Vets to Industry. I'm a networking room facilitator. I also participate on the every 3 weeks there's a networking meeting that also is for military spouse as well. So I get sent a lot of people that are from Texas. I know Texas is a big state, but they send me a lot of Texas people who are interested in transitioning here after the military spouses, as well as people interested in HR. So those are kind of my specialty areas, and that's my passion. I actually recently started a new daytime job at Lennox International. And one of the things that really, really interested me was their openness to diversity recruiting and expanding the traditional definition of race and gender. And I can say after just being there for 3 months, I just hit 3 months over the weekend, that they have already accepted several of my recommendations in terms of ways to implement. And again, some of these are baby steps, but we're making progress going forward. And again, I have a huge passion for all types of diversity. It just so happens I have a specialty in people with disabilities and military and transition and military spouses. So
I have wait, real fast. I just have a question. Could you tell people what DEI stands for? Because this may be a new acronym that they're not aware of.
Sure. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. And sometimes people actually add a B for belonging as well.
Oh, okay. So you may see that around like when you're reading stuff or got it. Okay. Thank you.
Exactly.
I just wanted to clarify because I'll be honest. I was telling Mary and Anna backstage when we were prepping for the show, you know, you learn about it, but I'm like, oh, they're saying DI. Like, what does this mean? And so I know I can't be the only one. So I just want to make sure. But this is the language you see when you're looking this stuff up is they don't always say it out. They say DEI. And you're like, what is that? We want you to be in the know. So thank you, Mary.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead, Anna.
I was just going to say, if anyone had any questions about whether or not we've got somebody qualified to have this conversation on, I think that just eliminated all the questions right there. I mean, you've got some time put into this, an unspecified number of years, right? That we're going to just go ahead and put out there. But you've worked on everything from race and gender issues all the way up to now, like you were saying, veteran spouse and disability issues, which I think is just amazing, because what that says to me is that you have seen the changes over the last couple of decades. You have seen it go from this tiny little thing that we barely ever talked about into now a national and global hot topic that is really important to address across the board, right?
That is exactly right. And I have to say, so I worked for Verizon for many, many years, back in the early 2000s, all the way into, I think I left in 12 or 13. And one of the things that actually taught me about the importance of diversity recruiting, but we did focus primarily on race and gender. And I know that they have huge programs, especially in the veterans area now, and they win awards for those, but we really hadn't started in those areas. But it is interesting, to your point, to see the evolution, and it's really expanding all of the different areas. So one of the things I say to people when they're not looking at people with disabilities and veterans is, when you're looking at those two groups, you can check many boxes. It could be a disabled female who happens to be Hispanic and has a disability. So you could have several different categories. And again, just by focusing on a veteran group or people with disabilities. So you really need to expand your thinking of what diversity looks like.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Expand your thinking about what diversity looks like. Because I think that that's hard for people. Like, we just, we hear that term and we think of one specific thing, right? Or a couple of different categories, but it really does expand way bigger than. Okay, we're going to get into all of this. Like, I'm going to ask you like our questions now. How does that
sound? Sounds good.
Yeah, let's dive into it, because Mary has a wealth of knowledge here. So, all right,
yes.
First question, Anna.
Yes. So, Mary, you said you work for Lennox International, which is an enormous company, right? But what we're talking, our audience is really small business owners, entrepreneurs. And so our first question for you today is, how does a small business owner or entrepreneur apply these diversity practices in their own business?
One of the things, go ahead.
No. Okay. Go ahead. And I'm going to let you talk. Yeah.
So one of the things I would say is, you can start small. Start with one thing. And then you can continue to build on that. You can either change it if it's not going the way you want, or you can just build and grow. So one of the things I would say is, let's say you have a storefront. I'm going to use this example of a bank. Or let's say you have a small store. It's a one store operation. So let's say you have somebody who has a mobility issue, and you have a door that you have to physically pull open. Well, if the person has a mobility issue and can't necessarily navigate the door, and you don't have one of those push buttons to open the door, they literally they have a barrier to enter the store. And so if you have somebody that's physically waiting outside the door, and they wait and they wait and they wait, and nobody sees them, they can't even enter the store to even begin that conversation. So think about, how are you inviting others with different capabilities or different types of background to either your website, if it's online, or to your store, your actual in real life, organization. Another example with websites. One of the things that's really big is making sure if somebody has a visual impairment. So, and this is something that I try very hard on LinkedIn when I'm posting my articles and I put pictures, is you make sure that you have the captioning on the pictures. And that you also, when you're using hashtags, so let's say, let's just use my name as an example. So Mary Elizabeth Leone, I would make sure to capitalize M for Mary, E for Elizabeth, and L for Leone. Because if you put it all in small letters, it all runs together. And if somebody is using a screen reader, then they don't know where the word starts and where the word ends. And so it's just a kind of a jumbled mess. So different things like that. It depends on who you're trying to attract. If you're trying to attract veterans, maybe you offer a veteran discount. That's something that my husband and I have talked about. He has a small business, and actually my little cup is something that he made, for as part of his business, but It's making like cutting boards and engraved things like for real estate agents and small businesses, et cetera. And so one of the things, he's a veteran. And so he has veteran-owned business. And he asked me probably about a month ago, he said, do you think I should offer a discount for veterans? And I thought that was a great idea. So making it more inviting to whatever the population is that you want to, I'm going to say, entice or encourage to visit you.
I'm curious, Mary, does the conversation go bigger than that? Like in terms of like, if there's a population you want to entice, but in reality, doesn't the DEI conversation say, it doesn't matter if you want to entice a specific population, not, it should be inclusive across the board. So there should be something available for that person with mobility issues or using a screen reader. Like I remember the first time you told me about the hashtag things, and I have attempted to capitalize now every time because that is something I did not know until you talked to me about it. Till you said, hey, did you know that a screen reader can't read a hashtag? And I thought, oh my gosh, I mean, hashtags are a big deal, right? We use them in a number of different social platforms. And so it's something that, like, until you mentioned that to me, I hadn't even thought about. And it's not necessarily that I'm trying to entice the screen reading
population.
Thank you, population. But it's more like I need to make sure that if somebody is reading via a screen, that they have the opportunity to still hear what I'm saying or my conversation or my message, I guess, is the idea.
Another really good example is subtitles. So I do have a hearing impairment, and while I can hear most things, there are some things where I guess because I can't hear. But I would say from the last statistic that I saw, about 75 to 80% of people watch videos without sound. So it's not people like me who have a hearing impairment, but it's other people. It's like my kids who are teenagers and they just want to watch a video, but they just want to see the subtitles. So do you have subtitles on your videos?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't. A lot of big companies don't. Another thing is if you're doing ads or you have a website, are you showing people or have testimonials for a broad diversity of people? So do you have people that look different? And do you have different options available? So for example, you don't necessarily have to have a veteran in his or her military uniform, but you want to be able to show a variety of people. And this is something we use in big companies all the time for diversity recruiting. Do you have somebody with a disability who has a testimonial, or a veteran, or a person of color, or a female, or an LGBTQ? So somebody that has that testimonial that can talk about, this is why I feel included at this company. And so this is, so you want to show that variety and not just have, so when you're building a website, just not have a whole bunch of white people or a whole bunch of females. You want to have a cross section across all of those different diverse groups, especially the ones you're trying to target.
I love I love that you're saying it. I want to tell you this. So one of our first clients that we built a website for, they had an accessibility question for us for the website. So first of all, there is an accessibility compliance website like certification. That is not what Anna and I are, but they do give other avenues for people that want to put something there until they can pay the big dogs to kind of come into their website on the back end and really do the whole and so we always offer that to our clients now moving forward is a little plugin that are, you know, it's a little like block that starts on every single page, and it does like what you said, it does a contrast, it does like a font thing, it changes the pretty fonts into a more readable font, and but it gives your website more ability, and like you said, to be more inclusive, and it's taught Anna and I to make sure we're being mindful, like you said, making sure there's captions on those images, making sure the alt texts are there, making sure that, like you said, those subtitles, so that the screen reader can follow down appropriately. Anyway, but those are just things. I love that you brought that up. And because I think everybody that is in business has a website, right? So, hey, Mary said earlier, start small, look at your website. Are you being accessibility friendly? And does your website platform give you something that you can add to it to help anybody that comes to your site be able to read it?
Those are great examples.
Are there, Mary, like 5 main things that people just don't really think about. Like your hashtags would be one. Accessibility on your website might be another. I love the example of having a storefront, but not having a mobility challenged accessible door, right? Like, I mean, that yes, for somebody who doesn't have mobility issues, I don't think about that until there was a problem with it. Are there a couple other ones like that for that small business genre that you just off the top of your head can think about in terms of like a suggestion of another area that they could look at within their business that maybe we haven't discussed?
So one of the things, and I'm just going to use an example of a story that I had, a discussion I had with a hiring manager. So a lot of times you look at the same populations, the same buckets all the time. Maybe it's customers, maybe it's suppliers, maybe it's vendors, whatever it is. You look at the same buckets and it's within your comfort zone. What I would suggest, especially as you're looking at vendors, you can look at female owned, you can look at minority or people of color owned, you can look at veteran or people with disability owned, and think about expanding beyond your traditional set of people that you interact with. And the same thing, the example I'm using from the hiring manager is he was comfortable with, this is where we usually find our candidates. And I had sent him a couple of others and he said, well, I'll interview him, but I think I'm already going to go with this person. I said, that's fine. I said, but sometimes you might be surprised. Some people don't do a really good job of sharing all of their experiences, especially volunteer experiences and hobbies, on their resume. And so they come across much better in person. So describe a realistic job preview. Make sure they understand it's a very technical position, but make sure that you understand, could they be a good, viable candidate, and expand your definition of what that pool looks like. So again, it could be suppliers or vendors. It could be the types of customers that you interact with. It could be a variety of things, but try to expand that definition. And sometimes it may make you feel a little uncomfortable at first, but when you continue to expand, you're probably going to have a much better business.
I love that. That's such a good ad.
Yeah, can I just jump in? So I worked for a large company back home in Hawaii, and at times, right, when you're having to make decisions, it's like in the heat of the moment and you think short term and not long term, right? And so if I just wish when I talk to you is if there were just times we could just pause for just a moment so we can make the better decision, because your brain just goes, you're more able-bodied, you're this, so you must equate to this, when that's, like you said in your thing, it is a big mistake to think that way, and then, but most business, you're right back into that hiring pool again, like, when you didn't think you would be because you thought you hired the perfect person. But it's just taking the moment, because that perfect person could be the person that you really like sit down and say, wow, they check all of these things in far, like you said, in your hiring. I love that you said that, because it's very true. And I implore you, big companies, take a moment, pause, don't make a haste decision just because you need to get somebody on board like today,
Well, and thinking go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I would expand that even to small business owners. Like, I hire subcontractors, and looking for that more diverse pool, right? Like, I hire a lot of military spouses because I am one. So I do fit like that category there. But, I guess part of it is knowing where to look also, right? Like knowing where these other pools are. And so that kind of takes us into our second question, which we already had talked a lot about the actual activities, but what about the programs or the pools that you're talking about? Can you expand a little bit more on where a small business owner could go to like seek out maybe some of this more diverse opportunity?
Sure. I would say go to your local organizations. And so you can start local, and then you can build to regional, and then you can build to national if you put in disability organizations or veterans organizations. So for veterans organizations, there are literally 45,000 veteran service organizations out there. There have to be some within your local area. So if you want to hire veterans, or if you want to look at veterans and figure out how you can better support, you can do something like that. Or you could always go to a chamber. They could have a Hispanic chamber, LGBTQ chamber. I know I did a presentation last summer for the LGBTQ chamber here in Dallas. They wanted to talk about the cross-sectionality of disability as well as LGBT queue people or employees. And so think about those ways that you can reach out to those local organizations. And if they don't know, or if they don't service your area, they probably know somebody who does. So you do that networking. So I talked to Anna, and then Anna knows 3 people, and I talked to them, and maybe one of them would be very helpful. But they also there's a lot of special networking groups. So I actually had connected with some veteran chamber group, and I got introduced to somebody who does a national veteran call trying to connect small business owners. And what it is, it's done once a month, and it's done in a few different areas around the country. And what they do is they bring people on to try and help each other. So if you have a challenge, if you're looking for more vendor relationships, whatever it is, they try to give you ideas, and then they connect you with people. And it's all right there on the call, and it's fabulous. So there's a lot of those organizations that exist. And again, if they can't answer your question, or if they're not the right organization, they probably know somebody who is.
Yeah.
Because it seems like, right? It seems like everybody wants to help. They want to share what they have. You just have to know where to look, right?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, good advice. Okay, so I didn't even think about, you think about like just starting in your own area and expanding out.
Right.
I also love the idea that it really is, it is your responsibility as the business owner to make that outreach. It is our responsibility. And I think that's an important comment to say here. It doesn't matter if you're a Fortune 500 or a giant corporation, even us small business owners have a responsibility to make sure we're doing our part, because it really starts with the individual, right? That's kind of the bigger topic, is that it's our mindset and our actions that eventually roll into this national change of pace for what DEI is really supposed to be all about. So that's fantastic. Mary, great advice, great suggestions for people, and definitely things that are doable for a solopreneur like myself or a small business owner, with less than 10 employees. There are absolutely things here that any size corporation can implement. And I love that.
I do too. We have a toolkit part coming up here in a little bit that we'll have one more question that Mary is going to help us share. But we're already at our almost 30-minute mark. You know what I mean? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to share where you can find Mary, and I'm going to tell you how we found Mary. We all met on LinkedIn, and then we went into a group. And Mary, to me, is one of the best LinkedIn connectors. She bridges. Okay. I am not joking. She bridges. If she thinks you need somebody, she tags you in her comments with another person that says, "Hey, I think you two would be great to kind of connect based on a conversation we had a year ago, even." You know what I mean? She's so mindful about it, and so she's a lover of connections, and she is on LinkedIn. She is like a LinkedIn queen. Wouldn't you say, Anna?
She knows everybody. If you need to find an in somewhere, Mary's your girl. She's the one who's going to figure out how to.
You guys are so sweet.
Kevin, get out of the way, Kevin Bacon. It's 6 degrees to Mary Leone, right?
Yes. Oh my God, so true. Mary, tell everybody on the slides where they can find you so they can connect with you.
So LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. I'm very active. I check it a few times a day. Usually it's early morning and late at night, but I respond to everybody. And I would love to connect with you. I'm really busy at my day job right now. However, if you want to connect one-on-one, it might just be a few weeks. But I love connecting with people. And you guys were sharing earlier, I love connecting people. Yes. So I find that just to be thrilling for me when I can make a match and I can connect somebody to somebody who's going to be able to help them find a job, find another organization, build their business, whatever it works. And hey, Heidi.
And this right here is our other queen. Yeah. Oh, yes. You guys go now. Go. Well, wait till after the show, because we still have one more good thing with Mary before we end up. But please connect with her. She's fascinating. She's wonderful. And I just adore her. And I'm so glad we connected earlier this year. So
me too.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to that toolkit thing real fast because, not the toolkit, our tip jar.
We're going to do a jar real quick. Yeah. So this is from Caitlin Eldridge, our resident CPA. She's amazing. She's wonderful. If you're looking for one, we highly recommend Caitlin. So Caitlin recommends for small business owners to consider short-term disability insurance. It helps if you get ill and injured and cannot work but still need your income. So this does apply to small business owners. Did you even know that you could get short-term disability? You can. So just something to think about and look into. It's, anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thanks, yeah.
Okay. Here is our toolkit that I'm kind of excited about. So Anna and I always say this, when we prep, we really like to kind of make sure we're looking for things that we can bring up in conversation with our guests. Either they have a freebie or we find something that we love to create conversation. That's something that Anna and I love to do. So Anna and I, again, we said we're novices. This is why we have Mary on today. So she can but anyway, we were searching for topics on DEI, and this blog post had come up and we shared it with Mary, but we're going to drop the link into the comment section, but it's 5 powerful tools to foster workplace diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'm going to have, Anna is actually going to share her screen real fast. I'm going to jump out of mine. And we're going to one of the tools was right here as tool 3, conversation starters and thought exercises. And what I'd love is to ask Mary, she shared with us when we were looking at this, what she thought was her number 1 on this list that she would bring up. And so I'm going to go like this real fast, just so you guys can see the full screen. But Mary, go ahead and tell them what number you would love to bring up and ask others.
So as I said before, there are several, but I would probably focus on number 8. What would your workplace look like if it were more inclusive? And one of the things that I'm going to encourage and I'm going to share is if it were more inclusive, you're probably going to have more innovation and diversity of thought. So again, thinking outside that box, what you're more inclusive, so you're including people that don't necessarily look like you or maybe act like you, but they approach things differently and they can be much more innovative, and that'll help your business grow and expand in ways that you probably couldn't imagine.
Fantastic.
Right? Yeah. I love that. I love what you just said, that you're going to also find more innovation if you have a more inclusive environment. Because if everybody looks and thinks and acts the same, then guess what? You're right. It's going to be kind of all the same note across the board. So I thought that was like kind of one of those light bulb moments for me.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, Anna, you guys, we're wrapping up here, and
we are
going to tell you where to find us.
Well, first of all, I just want to say Mary Leone is closing out our season 6 for the 15ish Coffee Chat. So this is our last show for season 6. Mary was the perfect guest to finish it off for this season. We're so happy she's here with us today. Season 7 begins October 19th with Lepora Lindsay, and she's going to be talking about mentorship, and she's an amazing woman. And so we're very excited to have her join us. And then, as always, you can find the 15ish Minute Coffee Chat on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. AnnaandSelena.com is our website, which we are dedicated to getting up by the beginning of the year in its entirety. So something to look forward to over the next few months. And then all of our live stream coffee chats, we turn into a podcast that you can find on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, any of the favorite podcasts. Locations that you would go, you can download it and listen to it, or whatever you do with your podcasts, in the car while you're running, whatever.
Walking the dog, doing dishes, so you can zone out the rest of the house,
Exactly. All of those places. Yeah. So we hope that you'll join us, listen to some of our past shows, and then, of course, join us for season 7, because we're super excited about our upcoming season. And I have to tell you, not the 7th, the 19th, Heidi. Just so you know, it's the 19th.
And we are moving our show we're moving our show to Tuesdays, and we're going back to 10 a.m. We trialed, and that's what business is, right? You trial an error. Not that this was an error moving to 1 p.m. on a Monday, but we said, let's give Tuesday a shot. So, hopefully you can slide us into your Tuesday program, if you like to watch live. But Mary, again, thank you so very much.
Yes. Thank you, Mary. It was such a joy to have you on today. And I cannot wait to implement some of what you've talked about.
Yeah.
Like I wrote a little list down of, I'm like, these are 4 things. Wait, this is number 4. These are 4 things that I can do that I am not currently doing. And I love that our conversation today sparked that. So I really appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you for having me. I was thrilled to get the invitation, and it's always so much fun to be with you guys. You're just wonderful. I love what you're doing.
Gosh.
So thank you.
Thanks, Mary. All right, guys. Thank you, season 6. We had a blast. We'll see you next season, guys.
Aloha. See you guys later. Aloha.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.